Never has the role of fathers been more important in shaping the minds and the development of sons. As we see more and more problematic male influencers rise to fame, I reached out to Eli Weinstein, a licensed clinical social worker, to help me understand how fathers can show up better for their sons and try to get ahead of them falling victim to predatory male influencers. Eli is an incredible therapist. He's worked in multiple settings, including psychiatric hospitals and outpatient clinics. He's honed his skills of CBT, ACT, positive psychology, and other therapy techniques to reach a grasp of the inner workings of the human mind. Eli's mission is to use his experience, expertise, and voice to help empower people and let them know that the life they hope for is possible. I'm so excited to have Eli here with me today. It's time to get naked with Dr. Kate. I'm your host, Dr. Kate Balestrieri, a Beverly Hills-based psychologist, certified sex therapist, and the founder of Modern Intimacy, a national therapy group. So let's dive into all things sex, relationships, mental health, and answer your questions with practical solutions and real answers. Each week, I'll share insights to help you build a healthy relationship with yourself, with other people, and with your sexuality. It's time to start thriving authentically. So let's get naked. And if you like this podcast, hit the download button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to leave 5 stars and a review. Thank you so much for joining me today. We've had many starts and stops getting this episode going, but I'm so grateful that we're here.
We gave each other grace and comfort to be okay with delaying, and now we're here, making it happen.
That's right. That's right. Well, I've been really looking forward to speaking with you, especially about parenting, right? You do a lot of work with folks around parenting and a lot of work with men and how to be great dads. Yeah?
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, how did you get into this space of working with so many parents first? I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey.
Yeah, I love to work with more parents.
Mhm.
And for me, it was as a therapist and a new dad, I felt that there weren't enough resources specifically for fathers
Mhm.
to find their space and place in the parenting world, in the unit. And I always make this joke, and I've spoken to the person who wrote this book, so and she agrees with the joke, so it's okay. But if you look at one of the most famous parenting books, What to Expect When Expecting, there are
Mhm.
only like 5 to 8 gray boxes that have to do for the men in like a 3 to 500 page book, and they are parents too. So it's not the same support that is needed for moms. By no means is it, but there
Mhm.
are similarities of parenting that runs through. And I've just been finding that need being more important as the years
Mhm.
have gone on. But, I do a lot of relationship work too. So
Mhm.
it's geared towards anyone and everyone. But in reality, there's just a missing piece that there aren't a lot of male voices within either the world of relationships or the world of parenting that I hope to fill.
Well, I appreciate that you're doing that work, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think that typically, culturally, caretaking and pregnancy and raising children has been deemed women's work. And so many resources have been appropriately provided for women. I mean, still not enough, frankly, but provided for pregnant parents and the people who are actually in the pregnancy phase and the birthing phase, because the toll is different, of course, on their bodies.
Yeah.
And there's so many parents who are not carrying the pregnancy who feel really untethered to the experience, I think, because of that. And there's a lot of misinformation that rolls around in the culture about how to be good parents based on what people experienced in their own parenting. And I find that when I work with new dads, there's a real mix. Some of them are super eager. They want to learn any and everything that they can, and they're just not finding enough great resources on how to become the kind of parent that they really want to become. And others are sort of hands off and like, I'll jump in when it's asked of me, or I'll do whatever my parents did because that's the only blueprint I know. And
Hmm.
that for some parents feels like all they want to do and participate in. So I'm really curious when you are working with someone who's going to be a father for the first time, what are some of the things that you are curious about as he's making the transition from being a non-parent to a parent?
Yeah, I love that question. And I'll just throw out in the last, I would say 8 months, I've been reached out by a lot of men in their late 20s, but I'll say 30s to mid 40s,
Mhm.
going through this shift of I've been doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working and I need to change.
In terms of
So
their parenting?
parenting themselves,
Mm,
any personal things, and they happen to be parents as well, of either their behavior, their
mhm,
emotional response, their regulation, their self-esteem, their
mhm,
anxieties. So it is a beautiful spot to be in to be able to help people.
mhm.
And the thing is that you can't go wrong either way. If someone, you can actually, but if someone doesn't want to be as involved, there's a reason for that. So I
Mhm,
asked them why, right? What's pulling you away from the situation? Is it fear? Is it worry? Is it concern? Is it that you don't want to step on anyone's toes? Or
mhm,
maybe you are just not into being a dad. All those things are valid, as well as the other side where
mhm,
someone's like, I'm ready, let's go for it, let's do it. Okay, how do we go about finding that space? So the first thing I do with any father, any new dad, is what does it mean for you to be in that space? What is that expectation? And then what is the reality that
mhm,
can be
mhm,
created on that expectation?
mhm,
Because to me, I have this thing that I talk about often. I call it the Holy Trinity, the idea of like expectations, realities, and perceptions, and how they kind of interplay. Now, it's not my idea. I just call it that when I refer to my clients. I just say, okay, think about the Holy Trinity. Think about the Holy Trinity, my go to like words as a
mhm,
therapist. And for me, if you have a certain expectation of how you think parenting is going to go, and then it doesn't go that way, you perceive either parenting as a problem or you as a problem or your partner as a problem without even knowing what the reality could be or actually is. So the first thing I always do with a lot of new dads and new parents especially is what is the expectation? Are you expecting to be involved in breastfeeding? Do you want to sit there and be with your partner? How is it with sleeping, job, roles, role changes? And then I talk about the pressures, right? And I include in that the fears,
mhm,
the worries, the shifts that happen within the relationship, all the pressure points that are now getting hit on or not focused on as
mhm.
much, which now creates a disconnect, which then adds pressure. So those are the two things I really start with most men if they ever do come want to work with me when it comes to parenting.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think a lot of the men that I've worked with really feel ill-equipped and then they withdraw and wait to be asked to help. And I see this as one of the biggest sources of tension between new parents because when people make that change from not being parents to being parents, there's just so much that you don't know, right? And both parents or all parents involved are struggling in their own ways. And I think they're all trying to put on a good show, a good face for different reasons. But here's where there's a big disconnect. And that disconnect can turn into a wedge and then a chasm really, really quickly. So I'm a big proponent of over communication in that stage. Really checking in with each other intentionally, especially if you're not the parent who carried the child, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's often so much confusion about, well, how can I be helpful? Especially if their partner is breast or chest feeding. Like, what am
Yeah.
I supposed to do if my partner's doing that? I don't know how I can be useful. And most parents do really want to be useful and helpful, but they feel scared. They don't know
Yeah.
how to jump in and be helpful and not intrusive.
So two things. I say this openly, and I have permission from my wife to talk about this openly. Our first year with our daughter Ricky was the hardest year of our marriage and relationship because we were so on edge, not knowing how to support each other and
Mhm,
what that support actually looked like and sounded like. And it took over communication and really explosive arguments
mhm,
um, to shed all of that fear away and just talk about, hey, I need you to do this because I'm tired. And not go,
mhm,
well, I'm tired too. Right. In any of those games that we play of that pointing fingers or who's the wrong, who's in the wrong or who's the problem. Right. And in reality, just saying, I'm just really tired. I'm asking you for help. This is your opportunity. You just
mhm,
complained you don't have enough opportunities.
mhm,
Or the idea of letting go of expectations of parenting on the other side
Mm.
to let someone else do something different than how you hoped and everything still be okay. Right? So
Mm.
that happens a lot too when it comes to parenting. This is a big thing in postpartum for men with anxiety, is that they feel pushed out naturally because by the society and the way the world works, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side you're on,
Mm.
of having the care and being out of work, paid for out of work, not long enough, but for a certain amount of time, you're hands on. And the other person comes in, oh no, we don't change diapers like that. Oh no,
Mhm.
we feed them this food. And it feels like no matter what you're doing, it's not good enough because it's not the quote unquote right way. So a lot of
Mm.
times it's letting go of that expectation of what the right way is. As long as the baby is alive, safe, and well, the person will learn. And I say this often.
Yeah.
Paternity leave for me was the best thing ever because it
Mm.
allowed me to learn me and my child together versus learning my child through someone else and
Mhm.
not knowing what my role is or what I felt was the route that I wanted to take that felt good for me, of how I sing
Mm.
to my child, how I rock my child, how I play, how I joke, how I kiss, how I love, versus
Mhm.
it being dictated through someone else's lens because I'm not involved as much. So those are a
Yeah.
lot of interplays that happen, but over communication is never a bad thing. As a relationship therapist says often, this when you stop talking, that's
Mhm.
the biggest problem. When you start removing yourself and freezing each other out. And this is not stonewalling like the Gottmans talk about. This is more like freezing, like EFT and Sue Johnson,
Mhm.
right? When
Mm.
you're totally cold and removed because you feel it's not worth it, you're not heard, it's pointless,
Yeah.
you're losing each other.
Yeah.
So just communicate.
Well, it's so easy to start warring with each other when you're underslept, underfed, scrambling to take care of a new child. If you have other
And find
children,
brain cells.
right? What are those? I mean, come on. So I think it's really easy to get in a position where it's me versus you as opposed to us versus the problem. So really reminding yourselves and each other that, like, hey, we're in this together, and really listening to each other. I like what you said about um, being okay with things not being done the exact way one partner thinks they should be done, but that can also become a battleground, right? Because folks are like, no, I want to do it my way. No, I want to do it my way. And they get really positioned in these polarities. And it's a power struggle because
Mm-hmm.
both parents want to do the right thing for their child. And they're not listening to each other about why the other person finds it valuable to approach it in the whatever way they think. So I think it's important to read a lot of the same materials together and do a lot of research in your free time when you're expecting a child around what are the experts recommending? What do the two of you agree with? What don't you agree with? Where are you in opposition with each other? And how are you going to negotiate? And when are you going to reevaluate what's working and what isn't? Because people go into parenting with all kinds of ideas around this is what we're going to do. Then they do it and they're like, oh shit, that doesn't actually feel like the thing I want to
Retreat,
do for.
retreat.
Yeah. But sometimes they fought so hard and long for it that they don't want to have that sort of humility with each other. But I say humility and over communication are your best friends.
Yeah, and I will say that a pushback to what you just said, not in a negative, but just what I hear happen
Hmm.
often, especially from moms and the birthing parents, are usually, I'm doing all the research and my partner isn't.
Yeah.
So something just to hopefully solve or help through that struggle. If you
Hmm.
are going to research and do the hard work to find what the experts and books are saying, if you want to listen to audiobooks and read something, good. That's your prerogative. Go for it. Doesn't mean the other person has to, but you can still talk to them. I just read this book about X, Y, and Z person, and they were suggesting, here's what I think about it. What do you think about it? The
Yeah.
conversation can still happen even though one of you is doing the reading.
You know, I,
Don't think that
I
just because you're reading that you can't talk about it, but it is, and I'm just to all the dads out there who might be listening or moms, it is unfair for one person to do it all. You
I
need
could
to
not
show
agree.
ownership. You got to
Yeah.
show ownership of the responsibility. It's like I say this with chores. It's your home together.
Mhm.
It's not one of yours. It's your family together. It's
Mhm.
not one person's children. It's your children.
Yeah.
So show ownership and show up, because that's how you show love, and that's how you show care for the situation and the responsibility that it holds.
Well, I think what you just said is one of the things that new dads stumble upon a lot, right? Like for myriad reasons, a lot of new dads really struggle to dive into the reading and the research and the preparing ahead of time. Whereas new moms often embrace that, right? And we have to remember, and I'm speaking in heteronormative terms here, but it's not just moms and dads, right? It's parents of all genders. But the parent who's carrying the child is really going through a different kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And they are often a lot more invested in understanding their body and what's happening in the baby's development and what to know about the earlier months of postpartum and childhood development. And a lot of dads, I think, this is my hypothesis, really want to be in the know, but also struggle with realizing how little they know. And that becomes for them a bit of cognitive dissonance. You know, it's a fear. A lot of the new dads I work with will say in their more vulnerable moments, I can't believe how uninformed I am about this, and it terrifies me. And I have a lot of empathy for that. And I think a lot of moms do too. But what happens is their fear around being undereducated keeps them distant from the material. And then their partner takes on so much more of the emotional labor and the mental load. And already a wedge is created in the
Mm-hmm.
partnership, and resentments begin. Because then when he says, how can I help? She says things like, why didn't you read the book? That's why you could have helped. Why didn't you educate yourself on this? Now I have to educate you on everything. And that doesn't feel very fair. And dads
Yeah.
are like, what? I thought she would just tell me what to do. And then I could bridge the gap in my knowledge. And I think it's a really, for a lot of men, kind of an innocent blundering that can create a
Mm-hmm.
lot of problems in their relationship later.
And I love that you use that word, because it usually is innocent. It's usually not to be divisive or manipulative or lazy. It's usually innocent. And especially when you're seeing your partner like go all in on the research and like listening to podcasts and reading books and researching, you're like, okay, you got this. I trust you. You got this.
Mhm, mhm,
So it is this innocence of I know you care and you're experiencing something that I just don't understand. Which
mhm,
also, by the way, does sometimes create the wedge of just relationship connection with the kid in general, because you're
mhm,
not connected and experienced, while the pregnant partner is literally growing, experiencing it throughout the time,
mhm.
connecting, and all of a sudden, pop, there's a baby, and you're like, oh, hey, I don't know you, and the birthing parent's like, oh my gosh, connection doesn't always happen. It's not so simple for either partner, but
Mhm,
there is this kind of more innate connection that could happen potentially than than dads or the other partner can feel. So that idea, it is innocent, and
mm.
and if you have found that it's not innocent, that's a totally different issue that we
Yeah,
have to talk about.
it can be innocent. I wouldn't say it is, I would say it can be,
It
like,
can be, for the
different
most part,
parts.
it is innocent.
Yeah.
But if it's not, that's a totally different thing that we need to talk about then.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about weaponized incompetence and how this can creep into parenthood.
Yeah. So I'm a very big fan of breaking down like learned helplessness, or the idea of someone kind of, I don't know what to do, but really they
Mm,
kind of do.
they do.
And the biggest thing that I work on, with people like that, and especially the other partner who is feeling alone and feeling overburdened, overwhelmed, and burnt out by how much they are doing,
Mhm.
that there needs to be a hard conversation about what the buy-in to the family means to them,
Mm,
and talking about a reassessment or a reevaluation where when it was just you and me, there was a different buy-in, a different expectation, a different reality that it required of you. Well, now there's a different requirement. It's not a poo-poo, you suck, do better. It's
mhm,
a, I need you. I
mhm,
love you. You love me. We're bought into this relationship together. How do we buy into the support? How do we buy into the chores? How do we buy into the cleaning this, the doing that, the moving this, the moving that. And
Mhm.
again, it doesn't mean that someone has to be yippee to everything that now is changing. It is stressful, it is hard, and it is overwhelming. It is an adjustment that needs to be adjusted to. But you got to talk about it and say, okay, here's what happened. Here's what I need from you now.
Mhm.
What's the reality then? What's the reality that is going to happen?
What is some of the biggest pushback that you get from men around taking accountability when their partners are asking them to step up?
It's the one I hate the most.
Mm,
It's, I'm working. What do you want from me? I'm so tired. Right?
right.
Like I said before, everyone's tired.
Everyone.
Everyone's tired in different levels and layers.
Mhm.
Sleep deprivation is different than physical effort of waking up and going to work. Dealing with a child all day is different than dealing with a child for a couple of hours.
Mhm.
We can't start comparing. It's literally comparing apples to elephants. It's not even a fruit that you're comparing. It's a different world. When
Mhm.
we start doing that, what we're trying to really fight for is attention. Please pay attention to my struggle. Please pay attention and take it seriously. Please respect me for the things that I am struggling with and the world that I am in. That's
Mhm.
when we say, well, I'm tired too. No, I'm tired. It's look at me. I'm really not doing okay. No, look at me. I'm not doing okay.
Mhm.
So some of the conversations that need to happen and the effort that needs to be made is to learn ways to show up and support a person in their pain and their struggle so they
Mhm.
can do the same for you.
Yeah.
Because it's not that someone doesn't want to give the love and support, but when you start throwing that shade and that back and forth of pointing fingers of who's more, you get lost in comparison and then lost into one upping each other on the struggle.
Yeah.
And that never helps anyone.
True. It really doesn't. And I think I hear that pushback from new dads a lot. And I think in part it comes from a fear that they're not doing enough, right? So they're
Yeah.
really quick to jump in with here's everything I'm doing and I'm also tired. I'm also confused. I might feel lonely. I might feel pushed aside and not important anymore. And I might feel really helpless. And I see you doing a rock star job at parenting, and I don't know what to do because I feel like I'm floundering. I think it's a lot of fears that come out in this deflection of, I'm
Mm-hmm.
tired too, right? It's sort of like the one blanket statement that's like, harumph,
Yeah.
I'm struggling and I don't know how to label it,
Do you know if I had the words to say what you just said when I would say that back in the day, it would have been heard so much more beautifully and
right?
actually respected
Hmm.
for what you just said. To
Yeah.
say, I feel helpless, I feel alone, I feel isolated, I feel on the outs, I'm not sure what I'm doing, I feel overwhelmed,
Hmm.
I'm afraid,
Yeah.
which is a huge vulnerable thing to say and very hard for most people to say.
Hmm.
But to say it like that versus yelling back to compare, the world of difference it would have changed for a lot of arguments and conversations for many people. But I love the way you put it. That was so powerful and so well said in such a wonderful way.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, look, I think that dads have such a beautiful opportunity to show up as parents, and a lot of them have not been given really great role models and how to do that. Now, some people have great fathers as role models, but a lot of men don't. And I think a lot of men don't really realize that until they become fathers. And then they start thinking like, wow, what did my dad do with me? How did he teach me this, that, or the other thing? How did he model that? And they really start going, wow, I don't have a blueprint for this because I don't really like how that was approached with me or
Mm-hmm.
within my family. But what else do I do? And I think that's a really hard place for a lot of men to be because then they have to start reckoning with like the realities of what they did and didn't get from their parents. And look, that opens up a whole can of worms and a whole can of trauma sometimes and a whole can of reckoning that is a lot to bear in general, but also while you're trying to figure out how to be a new parent. Summer for me is always a time of resetting my wellness practices. So that means working out, eating healthier, using lots of sunscreen. It also means taking care of my microbiome. So, whether you're off to the pool, hiking, or traveling this summer, you're bringing your microbiome with you. The 38 trillion bacteria that live in and on you, especially in your gut, are essential to whole body health. Seeds DS-01 Daily Symbiotic is a 24 strain probiotic and prebiotic that benefits your gut, skin, and heart health in just 2 capsules a day. I love taking Seed because it's a really convenient way for me to make sure that I'm taking care of my insides as much as my outsides. Only 2 capsules a day makes it really easy for me to fit this into my daily routine. Seed's patented capsule and capsule design means all 24 strains of bacteria survive the journey, from shipping to your door through digestion, without synthetic or chemical coatings. No refrigeration is needed. Seed goes the extra mile by testing their probiotics in chyme, the closest system developed to model human digestion and the gut, to ensure 100% of the dose is delivered where it needs to go. With clinical trials and breakthrough research published in top scientific journals, Seed's probiotic research and development make DS-01 a product you know you can trust. So support your gut this summer with Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic. Go to seed.com/getnaked and use code 25GetNaked to get 25% off your first month. That's 25% off your first month of Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic.com/getnaked, code 25GetNaked.
I love my dad.
Mm.
He still to this day has never changed a diaper. You
Wow.
know, like no joke. Still to this day.
Hmm.
I remember when I was working. I lived with my parents for a little bit when we were married, saved some money to move and buy a house. And I
Mm-hmm.
was downstairs working with a client, and my dad texted me, "There's poop everywhere. Please come up." And I had to run up. I had to end a session with a client
Oh no.
and say, "I have a poop emergency." Run upstairs. My father was literally holding my daughter out here. There was poop, literally eyelids everywhere, like just explosive poop. And I had to do everything to change, right? But to me, sometimes the blueprint, making your own blueprint can be very exciting,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you don't have the blueprint, which you might not, and my dad is loving, and with the grandkids, he gets on the floor and is the silliest human being. And sometimes I sit there and go, where was that guy?
Right.
Like, where was that guy for me?
Yeah.
I do have that thought once in a while, and then I go into the thought, well, I'm so happy he showed up for my kids,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what makes me so full, is that now my father, whether he could have been for me, whether it was stress, finances, his own stuff, whatever worries were going on, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure he did when we were babies, because I've heard stories that he was like that. But
Mm-hmm.
the way he is now with my kids, it gives me so much fulfillment and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But that journey of blueprint is exciting because you get to write how you want to be a parent. You get to figure out and empower yourself, and trial and error. Again, as long as the kid is safe, alive, and okay,
Mm-hmm.
it is a blueprint that you now get to create and
Yeah.
then teach, or then talk to other dads who are in that own journey of blueprinting as well. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me is one of the reasons why I started doing what I'm doing and posting and having a podcast, was I didn't find the blueprint. And guys weren't talking about the blueprint 10 years ago. It just wasn't a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. So it wasn't the conversation. And then, what's funny? You start talking about it and people are like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Oh my goodness. And it's a beautiful thing that can happen, that can be created.
So that brings up an interesting question. What are some of the ways that men can really expand their knowledge of how to be a good dad? Like, where should they start in terms of talking to their friends, talking to therapists? Like, what's your recommendation for them?
Yeah, so I think picking up any book itself, whether it's I'm not going to start calling out books. There's too many. But if anyone wants to have a list, I give recommendations, if case by case. But like Dan Siegel always is a go-to.
Dan
Um,
Siegel is my favorite.
oh my
Hmm.
gosh, and Tina Bryson, the two of them together is a great combo.
Hmm.
It's a start to understand children, and
Hmm.
especially the one that's about parenting inside out, which
Yeah.
understand yourself. It's not written for moms and women. It's not. It's written for parents.
Yeah.
So it's talking to everyone.
Hmm.
So that's the beauty of it. So start small, or find a podcast that you like, who happens to have a guest that has kids, or it's a man-to-man conversation, or
Hmm.
things of that nature. and you definitely know a guy, a father, you know someone who you look up to and admire, whether it's an uncle, whether it's a brother, whether it's a cousin, whether it's a friend, and just watch.
Mm.
You don't have to even talk to them if you're worried. Watch, pay attention, see how they parent their kids, see what
Mhm.
works and what doesn't.
Mhm.
Talk to your partner about men that they or fathers that they know of, that they
Mhm.
look up to, that they think are good examples.
Mhm.
And I know this sounds silly, but and because to me this is not the best example,
Okay.
but even some TV, right? There's a show called Parenthood that is a
Mm.
beautiful example of multiple different men parenting different ways throughout
Mm.
different generations with different types of kids.
Love that.
And it doesn't mean that that's the rule because it is TV,
Mhm.
but you can go, oh, I like that a little bit. Let me think about it on my own, how I would put that into my life. Or let
Mhm.
me ask someone or ask my partner what they think about that to see if that's an implementation about how we deal with a tantrum or how
Mm.
we deal with a newborn or how we deal with someone crossing a boundary with our kids. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to, again, not reality. It's just a TV. So please take it with a grain of salt. But it could be a trigger to have a further thought and a further conversation. And yes, going to therapy is awesome because it gives you a space to talk it through with someone who's not
Mhm.
involved
Mhm.
and might know a little bit different avenue or perspective that might
Mhm.
just again create thinking and create conversations to have further with yourself and with
Yeah.
other people.
Admittedly, sleep is something that I struggle with regularly. I wonder, are you struggling to get the much needed sleep you deserve too? Luckily, it's great sleep summer with our partner, Via Hemp. No more counting sheep or tossing and turning in the summer heat. Via Hemp is a company dedicated to harnessing the natural benefits of hemp to create high quality wellness products. Trusted by over 250,000 customers, Via Hemp aims to empower individuals to enhance their quality of life naturally, offering solutions that promote sleep and relaxation with their new Dreams formulations. These Dreams formulations now have passion flower and L-theanine, and Via now offers 2, 5, and 10 milligram options, as well as their 0 milligram Zen, allowing you to customize your sleep journey. Not just specific to sleep, Via also offers a wide array of other gummies with and without THC, ranging from 0 to 100 milligrams. Whether you're looking to improve your sleep, focus, have a little pep in your step, or recovery, Via has something for you. And the best part, Via legally ships to all 50 states in discreet packaging directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee. No medical card required. Ever since I started taking the Dreams formulation from Via, my sleep has definitely improved, and now I don't miss a beat every night. So if you're over 21, you can get 15% off and a free pack of award-winning gummies with our exclusive code. Get naked at viahemp.com. That's VIAHEMP.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Get the rest you deserve this summer with Dreams from Via. Well, one of my biggest takeaways from the book that you mentioned, Parenting from the Inside Out by Dan Siegel, is that what really can transform your parenting is your capacity to self regulate. And I think this is the thing that a lot of parents struggle with, right? Because kids push our buttons in all the right all the
They
right
push
ways. I
every
mean,
button.
they know exactly where they are and they push them with gusto. So the thing is, like, a calm brain is a connected and a growing brain. So you being able to regulate your feelings, understand your emotions is one of the best ways to start your parenting journey off with a lot of intention and with a lot of grace, because when you are regulated, you can help your partner with their regulation. That helps your baby and your child learn how to regulate. And a calm, connected family is what most people are opting for, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
beautifully said. Yeah, 100%.
Well, what other tips would you offer new dads as they're thinking about how to conceptualize fatherhood for the first time? Or if they're fathers now and they're thinking of a readjustment?
Forgive yourself and give yourself space to grow. A big thing is that we start beating ourselves up and hating ourselves for not doing enough, not being enough, not caring enough, not trying hard enough, or whatever it is. There is always time to recover and repair with your kids.
Mm.
Always. It's not lost just because you didn't do it the first couple of years or 10 years or 15 years. Forgive yourself for not knowing, not doing, and not being the person you want to be. Let go of that because now you're deciding to be that person. That's
Mhm.
who you're trying to step into today. The
Mhm.
second thing I would say is it's okay not to know. I thought that I knew everything about parenting when I had my first kid. And then my second kid came along and screw all that up. He threw everything to the wall. Nothing stuck the same way. It was a learning process. I had a good foundation because I figured out for myself what I wanted to be as a parent. And then they grow up and then there's new challenges. So
Mhm.
we have to be willing to say, I don't know, and give ourselves the flexibility to grow
Mhm.
because your kid at 2 is different than your kid at 12 and
Yeah.
15 and 20 something. And you can't lock yourself into this is me as a parent forever. Be
Mhm.
flexible and be okay with saying, I don't know. Let me try something different. Let's see
Yeah.
if that works. So
Yeah.
those two things I think are key for a lot of fathers and parents in general
Mhm.
to give yourself the kindness to let go of some expectations or hopes that you had, let
Yeah.
go of the past, let go of the mistakes or the issues or the things you did not get a chance to do. And the second thing is be flexible and admit that I don't know sometimes and then
Yeah.
learn what it means to grow to that next stage.
I love that. I love that so much. And I might add a couple of things. One, a lot of fathers are entering into parenthood with this expectation that they are the authority of their family and the authority of their children. And that's a bigger conversation maybe than we have time for today. But what I want to really hone in on is as your children get older, remember that encouraging their agency is better than encouraging their fear of you. And what I mean by that is, understand that your children have different developmental stages where pushing the boundaries is appropriate for them to do. And when you respond with aggression or fear or dominance, you're actually thwarting their development. So
Mm,
getting them to submit to you is not actually helping them grow. It's not
mhm,
helping them become better men who know how to make better decisions or better women or better adults who know how to make better decisions. It's literally just suppressing them. And that
mm,
is going to backfire mercilessly for them and probably within your relationship at some point in time. So help them consider their choices and make decisions and help them navigate the consequences of their decisions appropriately so that they can
mhm.
start to learn how to make good decisions instead of learning how to be afraid of you. That's one tip I would offer.
That
And
is,
this,
I think that is so important to let go of that control because in the end, they're their own people.
yeah.
And at some point, they're not going to be under your roof and
Mhm.
they need to learn what it means to be themselves
Mhm.
outside. Right? There's a very famous classic line when it comes to parenting that parenting is creating a beautiful nest and giving them wings with strength
Yeah.
to fly. Right?
Yeah.
We want to create comfort. We want to create love. We want to create a home that they want to be in and want to come home to
Mhm.
when they fly away, but they
Mhm.
have the strength under their wings to be able to fly. And
Mhm.
if we keep clipping them with fear and we keep holding them down and we don't create the right environment, they will not grow the way that they can and
Yeah.
they will not have the confidence they need to go out on their own. And they will then become more reliant on you in the end, or they won't be able to be themselves and don't even know who they are because
Mhm.
they're defining themselves by you
Right.
versus learning what it means to be themselves, which is
Yeah.
so powerful and so amazing.
Yeah. Well, they'll become more reliant or more rebellious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And both are trajectories that I think a lot of parents don't expect when they take that really sort of authoritarian approach with their children. The last thing that I'll offer is that children are sponges from the minute they're born until until, right? It's sort of like forever, right? They watch their parents and they absorb so much more information that they see instead of what you tell them. And they're going to learn how to treat the other parent based on how they see you treating the other parent. So if you're picking fights with a parent, with the other parent, if you are dismissing your partner, if you are minimizing your partner, your children are going to start doing that too, because that's what they see and that's what they're absorbing from you. And that generalizes into their adult relationships, into their peer relationships, their romantic relationships. So really think about what are they seeing you do? How do they see you treat people, especially your partner and their siblings? and your other relatives, because that's their first social group, right? Is your
Hmm.
family. And really like be mindful of what it is they're absorbing, because I think a lot of folks think if our kids aren't in the room witnessing the way I'm speaking to my partner right now, then they're uh, immune to it, but that's not true. You know, they
Yeah,
see it very
a few points on that. Recently, I was very tired and my face was, squished or whatever.
much.
Couldn't open my eyes. I was just very, very drained. My daughter looked at me and says, "Daddy, are you angry? You look upset."
Oh.
And I said, "Oh, my love, I'm not upset at you. I love you. You did nothing wrong. I'm just really tired." Right? So
Mhm.
even that, when it's not on purpose, your
Mhm.
kids pay attention as they get older, awareness of emotions and expressions and the way we behave. And the other thing I'll just add for anyone listening, not everything has to be a big deal.
S
Sometimes we need to let go. Your kid is playing on the couch and they're all okay. You don't have to be like, "Huh, huh, hey, huh," and freak out.
Mhm.
Be careful, be cognizant, be aware, keep them
Mhm.
safe. If they don't eat everything on the plate, but they say they're full and they're happy, not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different scenarios that I can throw out. A
Mhm.
hundred things that happen today that we make a bigger deal as parents, which
Mhm.
stresses us out, overwhelms us, and then we behave accordingly. I would say, especially fathers, that dysregulation is
Yeah.
usually in the form of intensity, aggression, and yelling,
Yep.
versus moms on average that I've seen and the research, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen either way.
Of course.
Stop taking it so seriously. Your kids are
Yeah.
okay. They're happy. They love you. They just want your love. They want you and your attention.
Mhm.
So if we
Mhm.
just pull back and not take things so seriously, we won't be as stressed. We won't be as dysregulated. And if you need a break and feeling dysregulated, take a break, walk away, calm
Yes.
down, come back. It's okay to pause. Your kids will be okay in the other room.
Yeah. On that note, I would say parents who are in the same home, or even if they're not, right? If you're co-parenting with someone, one of the greatest things you can do is ensure that your co-parent has time for self-care on a regular basis, and equal amounts of self-care time, right? So if you're a parent who loves to go golfing and you're gone for 9 hours on a Saturday, I really hope that you're creating 9 hours of space for your partner to have that kind of self-care time. Like really create intentional self-care time so that the two
Mhm.
of you can tag team with each other and practice rejuvenation on your own, not only for how you're going to show up as parents, but because that helps protect your relationship and how you show up for each other too.
I'm not here to cause trouble in relationships, but that's why I can't play golf. I can't convince myself. I would love to be okay, just okay at golf.
Hmm.
And I live in Vegas. There's beautiful weather majority of the year. There's so many beautiful courses. I can't be gone for 5 to 7 hours.
Yeah.
I can't do that to my wife.
Hmm.
But what we started doing, and maybe this is something that your listeners can take, is that either the night before, this is something we started doing because of what happened, I said earlier, with my daughter, that first year of being at each other's throats and not communicating enough. We've made it very active since that, and then our second child, and now the state that we're in today with just two kids and a dog, is that we get very active at night to say, "What do you need tomorrow?" Or in the
Hmm.
morning, especially on the weekends and
Hmm.
Sundays when we're not working. Is there anything you want to accomplish today? And it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be, if you don't have anything, don't make anything up. But if you're like, "I would love to go to the gym today for 45 minutes. Okay, great. How can we make that happen? Is it even possible? Let's do it." And it's
Hmm.
not a selfish thing. It's part of our routine that we
Hmm.
ask each other, "What do you need today? What do you need from today for yourself?"
Yeah.
And it could be, my wife loves going to Trader Joe's, and in turn, it helps the family, but she loves shopping at Trader Joe's, especially in Vegas where the lines aren't too crazy like they are in New York. So
Oh.
she enjoys it. Or for me, a walk, or
Hmm.
even in the morning when it's hectic. 6 o'clock, you're up and the kids are up. We have a dog. My wife says, "Hey, can I go take the dog right now? I really need it." For
Hmm.
30 minutes, 20 minutes. Go
Yeah.
for it. I got the kids. Let
Mm.
go of your ego, let go of your worries, and give in to the person who's saying, "I need something right now,"
Yeah.
and saying, "I got you." That
Yeah.
goes such a long way and means the world to the other person, which in turn will mean the world to you because they'll do the same for you.
Yeah.
So
No.
just check in.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. It has been so wonderful and so rich. Where can folks reach you if they want to work with you?
Sure. So I have a website, Eli Weinstein, LCSW.com. I have social media, Eli Weinstein _LCSW. I have a podcast called The Dude Therapist. It's just the fact that I'm a dude who's a therapist. It was the catchiest name I can come up with that wasn't just my name. And it's a mental health podcast for anything and everything when it comes to parenting, relationships, and ourselves. So please, any questions, ask. If I can't help you, I would love to help find someone who can. So please don't be afraid just to reach out, and hopefully I can help.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much again. And thanks everyone for listening to this episode. I'll catch you next time. Thank you for listening to Get Naked with Dr. Kate. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Dr. Kate Balestrieri and on YouTube at Modern Intimacy. If you have questions you want answered on the podcast, feel free to email me at question@getnakedpodcast.com. Our Modern Intimacy team is here to help you and to provide you with support. Feel free to schedule a free 30-minute consultation at the link in our show notes. And don't forget to join our newsletter for insights, surveys, and articles sent directly to your inbox. You can sign up at modernintimacy.com/newsletter. New episodes drop every Tuesday. I'll see you next week. Disclaimer, this podcast is not a substitute for therapy and does not constitute a professional relationship with me, Dr. Kate, or with Modern Intimacy. This podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only.